Students around the world are finishing their qualifications so they can get ahead in life and make their contribution. If you are studying, researching, or thinking about it, you will need practical tips, techniques, coaching, and support to help you get finished and be successful. I'm Peter Alkemer, the Student Success Coach, and welcome to the podcast. Each episode, I interview successful students and leaders in education so that you will learn everything you need right here. You will learn about writing, completing your thesis and other projects, planning, discipline, how to get more done, supervisors, getting published, getting finished, how to have the right discipline, and many other aspects of student life. Whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, Google, or any other podcast platform, please leave a rating and a review. Or if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. Either way, please get in touch and let us know what you think of the show and what you want to hear more of. Please always check the show notes for links to courses, material, and plenty more so that you can use what you've learned in each episode, take action, and achieve your student success. Please also join the Student Success Coach community in our exclusive members-only Facebook group where I post regularly and you can interact with fellow students just like yourself. Remember, you can't do this alone, so reach out, get involved, and take advantage. It's my commitment to your success. Now for this week's episode. A warm welcome to the Student Success Coach podcast. And I think we only caught up a couple of years ago even, or a year ago or so. And I mean, you were doing some very interesting research. And so our listeners today, I think, are just, really hanging on for those practical tips and techniques of, certainly how to be a part-time student. So we're going to get into all of that. And I want to hear your wisdom and experience. It certainly seems like you get a lot done, but before we get there, why don't you just give us some background, what it is that you've been studying, why you've been doing that, what's your definition of success? Just bring us all up to speed on what you've been up to in the studying world.
Yeah, so from an academic perspective, Peter, but I guess firstly, thank you, and I hope whatever insights I do share becomes very beneficial to some of our students out there, and So from an academic perspective, Peter, I started with an undergraduate degree in business management, information management, marketing, as well as supply chain. Clearly you could see, I didn't know where I was going, but I think with most undergrad students, that's probably the case. And then after I did a postgraduate through UNISA, which was specializing in strategy, project management, and information management. And then, I took a break from studying and focusing more on my career. I was at Deloitte for about 9 years and joined FNB now for around, I think, just over 2.5 years. And during my time at FNB, I mean, looking at, being surrounded by innovative individuals and, looking at where the bank was going, the idea from my side was, how then do I try and reinvent myself? I mean, many people speak about the fourth industrial revolution. You hear these terminologies, and trying to sort of contextualize it and make it practical. Can be difficult at times, and a lot of jargon and stuff like that. And so I thought about it and said, now how do I reinvent myself? Aside from getting a better understanding, trying to understand some sort of, let's just say, help me with my intellectual development, and also some sense of, self-fulfillment. And that's when I embarked on this journey with Wits Business School to study a master's in management, specializing in digital business. So it's only the second time that they're actually offering this degree, which is, I think the first year was actually last year, So it's been quite interesting. I mean, it's unlike your management courses and some of your traditional courses where you've got tons and tons of literature where you can easily just go and refer yourself to, and then try and understand stuff. But it's been a bit challenging. At times we're reading white papers and blog articles and stuff like that. But it's been a bit of an amazing journey in the sense that we can actually see, aside from just me studying that, but how sort of, I think, higher education is evolving, to include other sources, not just the traditional research papers and your old, let's just say, textbooks and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's sort of my journey so far. I think it's been it's sort of my second year into the program. It's been a bit challenging, considering trying to balance, I wouldn't say balance, let's just say integrate work life, and studying at the same time. So that's where I am right now. The course is, as I say, quite dynamic, very much around digital strategy, including platforms, cybersecurity, risk management, digital operations. So it's got a whole digital flavor to it around how do you try and introduce digital concepts into an organization that is still pretty much traditional, or even if you are still, let's just say, high up on the digital maturity curve, it's how then do you try and get better, refine. But I think one of the key takeouts for me was around challenging your own mental model. And when I say challenging your own mental model, it's how then do you try and look at a situation or a scenario with a different sort of mindset altogether. I mean, we've went through a lot of your exponential organizations such as Facebook, Amazon, and Alibaba, and if you break, so you get to the crux of it. I'm not saying the guys were bad or anything of that sort or did something that was very easy, but it was, if when you reflect and you sort of think about it, you're like, wow, they just looked to the, I mean, they sort of adopted a different lens, and came up with a very innovative solution. And some might argue that, yeah, but we've always had these technologies, but I think the ability to actually pull all of these things together, into sort of an ecosystem, was brilliant from their side. And many of them look at it and they say, yeah, you know what, a lot of these individuals started off in either in garages or taking a chance, but at the same time, it also makes you think that there is an element of sort of risk taking that is involved. So yeah, Peter, I think from I'm not sure if I'm sharing too much, but that's been sort of my journey so far, and it's been quite exciting. Yeah.
Wonderful. No, that's great. I mean, I think you touched on a lot of topics there that you and I have chatted about through our involvement professionally, and I've also packaged into some content and online learning courses, such as my digital masterclass. So when you talk about building these big companies that started in a garage, some of that we've tried to get going in the corporate world through, I think, the idea of self-disruption. And all of those are wonderful and crucially important topics for business. And I think it's wonderful that there are these new programs that are launching, and there's a number of people doing that same course, which is great. So Nitesh, I mean, maybe I'm just keen to pick up then, just from a more personal perspective now, in your journey as a student. And maybe, I mean, you did mention in your undergrad space that you picked up on a couple of different topics, and then you started to make sense of where it is that you wanted to focus, and then you went into your career a little bit, and then you went back to studying, etc. I mean, was there any common thread, if you like, when you think back to your days as an undergraduate student? And I mean, we were all fresh out of school and, going into that next phase of learning and so on. I mean, just maybe paint a picture for me as to your transformation or journey as a student from those undergraduate days to then doing a master's and having got some professional experience, and how perhaps that changes, your perception of the higher education world. And has that been an important journey for you, or transition from undergrad to your most recent postgraduate studies?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, Peter, I mean, it's a very, very interesting question. And I think for any student out there, especially for myself, yeah, it's a lot of internalization and reflection. If I had to sort of, put it in from that perspective, I think my undergraduate studies, and to some extent even my honors degree, was more or less around, if I could probably sum it up as to, like, let's just say surface learning. When I say surface learning, meaning that it was more around how can I memorize this piece of information and then reproduce it at a later stage, So I mean, that was sort of the mindset at that point in time, And yes, although I did the normal in the sense that plan ahead, get a schedule in place, make sure that you sort of know when your deliverable timelines are. But I think, yeah, with that mindset, and yeah, going back a good couple of years back, it had been around surface learning. It's around how then do you take this information and reproduce it either in an exam or a test. And I think the thing that's really opened up my eyes is, getting practical work experience, and now sort of doing a program that's so relevant in this current sort of sort of industry, but the time that we're in at the moment. And I think with practical work experience, it allows you to grasp concepts much easier, and at the same time, it also helps you to, let's just say, get a better understanding or more deeper learning. And I think that's been my approach with this master's program. It's been very much around trying to understand concepts very much in detail, not for the sake of just reproducing it, but for understanding in terms of how can I apply it, not just from a practical perspective from the university exercises, but coming back into my organization, into my own life, and how then do you try and adopt these tools, these technologies, but by getting a better understanding of it. So Peter, sort of like sum it up. To answer your question, yeah, I think back then it was very much surface learning. Right now, it's more around in-depth understanding of these various. And I think, from my perspective, it's much more enjoyable in the sense that you actually see the benefit of what you are doing. Yes, I must say, being a youngster back then, you generally have a view of the world, and once you get into the world, it's a different story altogether. And I think coupling what the real working life experience with current studies right now is good. And I think if I had to give anyone any sort of advice, it would be, before you sort of maybe get into a master's degree or anything of that sort, at least get, I think, minimum about 2 or 3 years of experience to give you a view around, what is it out there. I mean, very much from an academic perspective, you might have a view that, how can I put it to you, that a lot of things are achievable, or anything is achievable. But from a practical perspective, when you get into the world, then you realize, wow, it's not really the case. So I think, yeah, Peter, that's how I'd sort of sum it up, my experience so far, and especially what's been sort of different in my approach during this time around, if I had to compare from my undergrad to the sort of my current master's degree now.
Yeah, that's an incredible insight there. So you went from that sort of surface level learning deeper into the topics, which I think, is just probably something that a lot of people can relate to. And certainly when I finished my undergraduate degree, I wanted to go straight into an MBA. And I was advised, almost told, please don't. Yeah. You'll waste your money. So, and I was kind of disappointed. I thought, well, I'm just going to carry on studying and we'll do it part-time, whatever the case. And they said, no, come back, get some work experience, and then you'll approach it with a completely new perspective. So you're in this realm now of really getting into these concepts. You're seeing the application of them in the world. The course you're doing has only been around 2 years, so it is grappling with these, absolutely radically new ideas in the digital space. And talk to me a little bit about how you're balancing, because obviously now, yes, you've got that perspective of the work experience. Yes, you're going deeper in, but equally, we all seem to have less and less time every year. We just, the responsibilities, whether it's work or family and everything else we try and pack in our lives. I think it's the sort of curse of the part-time student. We're part-time for a reason, because, we don't have enough time to do everything else in the day. How do you balance and prioritize, what it is that you spend your time and efforts on at that deeper level of learning and absorbing those important concepts?
So I think, Peter, what's worked well for me is, if I had to reflect back, at my time at Deloitte, one of the global CEOs back then, I can't remember who exactly, but there was a concept which he sort of put together. It was called the 5 Ps, and it was around proper planning prevents poor performance. That's proper planning prevents poor performance. And ever since, hearing this, I sort of unpacked it, and at that time I was in the projects world, so looking at project risk management across various projects, from IT to construction projects. And it was something that really hit home. And then I thought to myself, how then do I try and apply this in my sort of everyday life, as well as with work at the same time. And being a consultant, you generally are working on multiple projects, various clients, and yeah, people can get very demanding. And many of the times you do find yourselves sending out emails at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then up again for a conference call at 6 o'clock. So sort of like ingrained in me. But I think, yeah, that the 5 Ps, I think that's been my approach to my current studies at the moment. And if we speak about balancing, I like to call it sort of work-life integration, because with the concept of balancing, it's you either got to give up one for the other. And I think in one of the books that I read around mindfulness and Harvard Business Review, they very much speak about how do we try and integrate these things, because we can't do without the other. If we don't have a job, we can't live. If we don't live, we can't actually work. And very similar, I think the studying element is like a third element in there as well, because how then do you try and bridge that knowledge gap to try and either better yourself, for the betterment of yourself as well as your peers and whatever else you're doing. So I think, yeah, I mean, trying to adopt that sort of the 5 Ps to say that concept in terms of planning, pulling together, your course material, knowing when are the right sort of, what are your deliverable dates looking like, setting out your calendar for that. And that's what I did. I mean, I was quite surprised when I sort of mapped out this whole calendar from January all the way to November to actually, when are the core modules being delivered, what are the examination dates, the what's called assignment timetables, and then your group syndicate deliverables at the same time. So I think planning is utmost vital, because if you don't get planning right, you're going to find that everything, and in this new world of fourth industrial revolution, we speak about ecosystem. My own ecosystem would have got disrupted, in the sense that you find yourself giving a lot of time to one element, and you may be sort of sacrificing your personal time a lot more than what you should be. So I think, yeah, what's key there is around planning, getting all your information together, course material, whatever it is, having of it, and setting up milestones, because ideally, yes, in a plan we do need little sort of mini milestones to say, what is my goal for the short and interim period. And I think, yeah, if you can plan that quite well, and then, I wouldn't say the unfortunate thing, and I think I did mention about sacrifice. Yes, you do have to sacrifice some personal time, and coming with that sacrifice is, let's focus. I mean, I've made a decision over the next 2 years. The focus is going to be this master's program that I'm busy with. And yes, I'm not saying, I think I said earlier on work-life integration, you've got to try and help to fit in everything else around that, and don't ignore your studies, because your work, because your salary is going to be paying for this anyway. So I think, yeah, if you can plan this upfront and sort of like work around work, and as well as your personal life and personal commitments is very, very much quite key. And I think this helps you to get into some sort of routine. Once you're sort of in this routine, I mean, my specific routine is such that, yes, from about 8 to 5 or 5:30, it's generally busy with the work, and then after that it's around taking a break, going for a walk, getting some fresh air, sort of like reflect and listen to some sort of soft music as I walk around the block, getting back to home, so what helps me a lot is that I do meditate. So then in the evenings, spend about 10 minutes or so in meditation, more or less just to calm the mind, so that you're in the right mindset. And over the years, I have figured is that being a youngster back then, trying to study, and you're sitting on one page for like 3 hours, which is like, what am I doing here? And you're like, the focus is not there, the concentration is not there. And now as you mature, you sort of realize that, if you can sort of enhance your concentration abilities or focus abilities, something which might generally take others 2 or 3 hours to grasp, you might probably do it in about half an hour. So that's been, I guess the meditation element helps a lot with that. And yeah, it's generally then logging onto my personal laptop to kick off my studies, and that's been my routine from the beginning of the year till now. And I have fallen in that trap, the trap of sort of leaving things for last minute on certain modules, and you find that you do get a bit more rushed. And what does that rushing sort of entail? It entails, or what does it rather result in? It actually results in you either compromising the quality of your work and then going more towards a surface learning approach, if I'm making sense there, Peter. So I think the other one is that try not to fall into that trap. If you do, put in some extra hours to actually get back on track with your plan. And I never did. I always thought, yeah, it's, what, if something goes astray, we can easily just pull back and stuff. But it becomes very important, especially when you're dealing with multiple modules, or concurrent modules at the same time, various deliverables. You've got different academic lecturers with various different requirements. So, I think if you do fall off track, try as best as possible to get on track, because that does have an ultimate effect on your your interim goals, as well as the outputs that you put in. So I think, Peter, I think it was around, that's how I've sort of managed it. And coupled with that was personal sacrifice. And yes, there are times when, and I'm the type of individual, I mean, I like to be out and about. You got to make that time to have a break, whether it's go and see friends and family, or just go out for a drink to the bar. But it's around very much trying to have a steady set or a level head mind, and try not to stress yourself. I think what I've done initially upfront in the year, a lot of my syndicate group members, many of them were choosing various models with the whole view is that in the first year we need to get a lot of modules done and then focus on our research in the next year. And my approach I was like, I understand you, but I'm like, but why are you putting pressure on yourself and sort of undue stress? In my mind, it was around, and I think early sort of my approach to it was around, it's sort of, deeper learning, and very much of the view that, if you've got a lot of things on the go and, you're juggling work, you're juggling your personal life, as well as now studying, why would you want to put yourself in that stress? So it was around, be sort of, very calculated in the number of modules that you do take up for the year, so that you can actually control it and not necessarily stress yourself out. And it allows you the opportunity to actually get into that, let's just say, that deeper level or sort of a deeper mindset to understand these courses, instead of just going out there and reproducing the content for the sake of it. And yeah, I've now submitted. So I think that's quite key. It's good to be ambitious, but at the same time, try and do it with a bit more of a level-headed mindset. And what I found is that some of my colleagues who are busy with the program, a lot of them had that mindset of do as much as we can now, and then it sort of follows a tick box approach, if you get what I'm trying to say. So, and you're not sure whether you're really benefiting from this approach or not. So I think, yeah, be smart about what or how much you take on. And I've always been a yes man in the sense that from my days at working in consulting, even now, if my manager, whoever it had or whoever it was, had to ask me for anything, I'd say yes. And I think having the ability to say no at times is sort of very helpful, because there's lots to manage. It's not something where it's like an undergrad or an honors degree where you can spend a couple of hours grasp certain concepts and then go out there and sort of reiterate it. But it requires sort of deep understanding, deep research. So I think, I think that element speaks more towards, let's just say, trying to manage your stresses. So I think, you definitely need to consider those points.
Great, Nitesh. I mean, there's such a lot of great insight there that you've given us all and our listeners. And I mean, just if you're listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see unless you're watching on YouTube on the video version of this interview. I think, Nitesh, you've got a whiteboard there behind you. So I don't know if that's where you put up your planning and your calendars and sort of run your life. It looks blank at the moment, but I'm sure at times it's going to be quite, full of, everything that you've been talking about just now. And I really love that, proper planning prevents poor performance, or, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I mean, there's all these great sayings. And I think the practical tips that, our listeners can take away today is what you were talking about when you mapped out your calendar. And I teach this in my course on how to transform your academic performance and get finished with your degree. And I relate my own experience when I was coming to the end of my PhD, and I had about 7-8 months left, and now I needed to write up my thesis. And I literally did exactly that. I took the calendar from January to, I think it was about August at the time. And then I took each section of my thesis that I needed to complete, and I mapped that to a week. So, week by week, I knew exactly which section I needed to be working on. And then I agreed with my supervisor on that calendar of 7 months. I had 3 supervisors, and we agreed when they were going to be reviewing which sections, so that they could also plan ahead, because that planning often is not just for yourself, and you maybe need to put in your own holidays and commitments. And I know that you do a lot of incredible work in the community, so that plan just helps to put everything together, and I think also reduce the stress levels, because when you can see it up there on a plan, at least you're not worrying about everything. You've written it down, and you're then going to now go sort of day by day or week by week. And I literally did that. I would tick off on that plan, which I had up on my cupboard door, and with a pen hanging next to it, and just tick, 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 tick. And that sense of accomplishment of working through that plan is something that I think our listeners, we've reinforced the importance of that with their studies, through this chat, because we do immerse ourselves in these complex and important problems, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have that planning discipline or that sort of project management approach to it. And then I think what was great was within that, you've got your routine, you've got your daily habits, you've got your pattern. You've got time set out for yourself to meditate, or to have some quiet time, as you put it, to calm the mind. So I love that, and then also not to stress out too early on, and to balance out the time based on when you need to do things. And I do find that without a plan, people tend to stress a bit more. So with a plan, when you should stress about something. So like delay your stress, if I can put it like that. Some things you're not going to help by stressing at all. But Nitesh, you mentioned just now that you're going into some research, and I know when we spoke that you were busy in the middle of interviews, and I'm guessing, is that now the latter part of this overall degree, or what stage are you at with your actual research and the development of a thesis or a topic for yourself? And maybe give us some insights about that and how you're approaching that aspect of your postgrad qualification.
So I'm about maybe probably around 70% through with the actual program. Just got a few, but I think it's 3 more electives to be completed. And then on the research side, Peter, so still very much in the infancy stage yet. I still need to actually position my research topic with my supervisor. But I think in terms of trying to identify a suitable topic, I think from my perspective, it's been around doing a bit of work on the internet, liaising with my supervisors, my lecturers, around how then do I try and sort of use my efforts to look into a topic that's going to add value and not necessarily go onto some sort of bookshelf. And I think part of that is around liaising with various SMEs in the market, getting as much input as I can, before sort of settling on a view to say, this is my research topic, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that was our conversation about a month or a month and a half back around, trying to identify, what should be the suitable topic. And I think, yes, I mean, many a times, and I've sort of picked it up from my syndicate group, was that individuals generally try to go for the so-called perceived easier topics. So here again, going towards a tick box approach in terms of submitting my dissertation, and this is it, and I'm happy with it, and something that's not very difficult. But I'm of the view that no, you need to do something that's going to add some sort of value to this world or whatever you are doing, so people can benefit from it. And add to some sort of existing body of knowledge. And considering if we look at digitalization, yes, some might argue it's still fairly new, but I mean, if you look at some of the concepts, they probably go back about 10 or 15 years back. So, but yeah, in comparison to, I think I mentioned earlier, like with management and accountancy, here you've got over 50, 60 years of literature, which sort of defines those, let's just say, those courses. So yeah, there's definitely room to actually, sort of contribute to new knowledge, which is great. And I think part of my focus, or what I'm intending on focusing on, is on, from a platform technology perspective. Yes, there's lots of technology out there. There's lots of good, successful examples. But where I think, and I think that was with, having a chat with you, Peter, and getting guidance around this, was that I think many organizations struggle to transition from either traditional business model, onto a platform business model. I know in our environment we have a very specific terminology which we use, but I think it's around, and I have looked into this around, what, there's many organizations that struggle with that. It's how do you take your existing capabilities and then put it into a platform capability so that can exponentially grow. And coupled with that, it's not just a technology element, but I mean, from people, process, change management becomes quite key then, and also looking at it from a strategic perspective, where to from here, what does this mean for our business, what does it mean for our operating model. So I think if to sort of sum it up, and I think I did say earlier, it's still in the infancy stage yet. I still need to position this with my supervisors, but that's been my thinking in terms of a research topic. But even before getting to the research topic, I think just to highlight, it's around getting a good couple of data points, and I think, yes, thank you, Peter. One of them has been you, and looking at what's out there to actually select a topic that it's very much relevant, and I think something that you will be known for. I think someone once told me, I mean, by doing something that's quite interesting, that adds value, you could actually craft yourself a specific role in an organization, or become that sort of, let's just say, subject matter expert. And I think from my perspective, that resonates a lot, because currently I'm within the risk fraternity, and when many people, they do come to me for advice, and they're like, no, we can't imagine, I mean, someone with your character is sitting in risk, because you not necessarily have that sort of mindset. And I'm like, no, you can adapt, be adaptable and sort of versatile. But at the same time, I think that's where it speaks to, me trying to reinvent myself. From a research perspective, Peter, I mean, I think that's where I am right now. My intention is that, at least to kick off this actual research by December. So yes, although many people might be going on a holiday, I will be having a holiday, definitely. But I think a lot of that time will be spent around, putting a lot of work into my dissertation, so that at least by next year, June, July, I'm actually done with this. I mean, that's sort of my internal timeline. I know we do have about a year or so, which the university allows us to sort of submit it by, or if there is any sort of additional time that you need, they will allow you to. But I think a key advice from what one of the professors, Brian Armstrong, had mentioned was that while these concepts and you're in the mood of sort of studying, and you have that right mindset, try and get cracking with it as soon as possible, because the longer you take, you might find that, yes, I think life does happen, and your priorities might change. So I think that's sort of my approach going into it now.
Yeah. Nitesh, I mean, I think again, just some very valuable insights there. You touched on topic selection, and although you're in the space where there is so many different aspects that are so valuable and that you might feel very passionate about, at the end of the day, to get a piece of research done and go deep enough into something, it's going to have to be well defined. It's going to have a very clear scope. I teach a lot about how to develop good thesis statements, and to draw a box around exactly what is the scope of what it is that you're going to investigate. And when students put a proposal together and they then have this planning mindset coupled with the specific area that they're going to go into, that really sets them up for success. And if they're too wide and they don't have the planning, that's when we have the high dropout rate, and students get sort of demotivated despite the passion that they might have with the subject. That they don't have those extra skills and techniques and experience necessarily, or the coaching and the support, or the insights from someone like yourself to get that advice and understand how important it is to develop the right topic that will get you through and be successful. And I think also what I've advised many of the students that I coach is that just because you're doing a specific piece of research on a topic right now, it's not the end of the road. You can pick that up in a future research. Maybe you pick that up, or another aspect of it, in another master's or in a PhD, possibly, if it's something that you really want to go and become a deep subject matter expert, and not to try and do too much at once with any given research project. The wonderful thing is that we can always come back to these things, but you need to sort of take that agile mindset of, well, I'm going to sprint through this topic, and I'm going to really, capture the best insights and analysis that I can and present that back, and then maybe get some input from the industry, see if that's valuable, and then adjust and adapt based on that feedback for maybe then a longer term, more involved research topic. So Nitesh, I mean, this has been absolutely fantastic, and I think our listeners have got so much practical tips and tricks and words of wisdom from yourself, and looking forward to seeing research develop, and that you continue to add value back into your organization and into the industry. What is your maybe like sort of words of wisdom or thoughts around just students that maybe are thinking about getting into some research? Maybe they've got a handle on a topic already, and they wanting to formulate something, and trying to balance that out with coursework, etc. What are the things that have stood out for you in terms of advice that you would give people listening or watching now that are at that stage similar to yourself, and where maybe you've made some progress and got some insights?
I think, Peter, I think what's key is having an open mindset is quite key in terms of what you're trying to or what you're looking at. And generally, when you go on with blinkers in a certain scenario or a situation, you're only seeing it one way. So I think having an open mindset is very, very important, and which I have sort of adopted. And I think if you look at fourth industrial revolution and the pace of change, many of these great leaders have always had sort of an open mindset around doing things. And I think, yes, don't be afraid to sort of put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Be vulnerable in the sense that it's good to say I don't know or I don't understand. And it's about reaching out to the right individuals who have experience. And I think one of the, which I always sort of go back to and I sort of reflect is our conversation a couple of months back, when this was your advice that you'd given me, and I always sort of reflect back and be like, wow, okay, cool. Here's sort of a view or a perspective that's coming from an individual that has been there, that has done that. And the idea is always, as I said, don't be afraid to feel vulnerable, is a sense that the idea is not to make the same mistakes again. I think if you make the same mistakes again, then between Peter and myself, then to some extent we've also failed. But I'm saying everyone goes through this whole cycle back and forth. And I think, Peter, I think some of your podcast as well as the Udemy stuff, I think is quite valuable and insightful, because it's just like, why should we reinvent the wheel again? This guidance is there, it is available. So let's utilize it. And I think, as I said, it's not about reinventing the wheel. If you don't know something, just say it. And I think that's where I think, which I didn't touch on, Peter, sorry if you don't mind, is around this having a good syndicate group. Sometimes it's out of your control, but I think getting to know them and getting to understand who they are, building some level of trust is very, very is quite key. And it actually, if you can do it upfront in the year, it'll be awesome, because that sort of sets the tone for the rest of the year as well, and your experience within the group. I'm fortunate enough that we've got a very diverse group of individuals, and quite strangely enough, at the beginning of the year, there are these psychometric tests that's done to assess the group and the sort of the level of interaction. But aside from it, their preference in the sense that they're studying and they're learning styles and stuff like that. So understanding that upfront, that gives you a good view on understanding like ways that and what's happening, and you might think to yourself, wow, this person is straight to the point. But then after understanding them much better and their character, it helps you to sort of put things together, and using your syndicate group to actually for soundboarding, for feedback. And I think holding each other sort of honest. When I say honest, I mean there have been times when we felt like, I had enough of this, and we sort of made a pact at the beginning of the year to say, no, we will motivate each other to say, no, guys, we are nearly there. Let's just finish this module or whatever it may be, or this deliverable. So I think a lot of people may underestimate the syndicate group in the sense that, I've got group work to do and stuff like that. But I think look at it with a different mindset, because I think even with my research topic as well, Peter, I think definitely bounce it. I mean, I'd like to think that we are sort of like-minded individuals, so we're seeing the same picture. So that's been quite key as well, in terms of trying to sort of arrive to a research statement or research topic, was having these individuals also sort of like test my thinking or stretch my thinking at the same time. So I think, yeah, Peter, I hope I'm answering your question there, but yeah, I think that's some of the key insights I would give there.
No, that's great, Nitesh. Thank you. I mean, that teamwork aspect is so important. And once you've developed that relationship of trust and mutual understanding, then I guess that's where the planning also comes in, and people all work according to a plan rather than any one dominant individual in a team. But I think you're so right to focus on the relationship and make sure that everybody sort of, understands each other and where they're coming from. And then once you have that relationship, then you can get into the execution and the practical aspects of getting the work done. Nitesh, so absolutely happy to have any further chat. As you know, I do a lot of coaching and support for students, and just also trying to give back and package useful content for people where it's useful, but equally give a platform for people like yourself to come on board and share your insights, and for other people to learn from. I certainly don't have all the answers, and I think we've added a lot of insights and wisdom from yourself today. And from the podcast, and the whole community of the Student Success Coach, we'd wish you well with those last few stages of your research, and good luck. Well done for getting so far, and for all the fantastic contributions you've made, and may it continue. And we wish you every student success.
Yeah, no, thanks, Peter, and thanks for the opportunity for having me on this platform. I really do appreciate it, and to all of you out there, good luck. And I think if I had to sort of part with a single sort of, let's just say, tagline, I think it's having this plan in place. Going through this experience is quite great, and I think it's only after upfront in the year you don't necessarily see the benefits. All you just see is that my time being taken and the sacrifices that I need to be made. And actually now when I look back, about 8 or 9 modules back now, the number of assignments that have been submitted, the number of Teams calls that I've had, late nights included, either work or studying, and then you realize, what the human body, or what yourself, what are you capable of doing? And I think, if I had to have a parting line, it would be, the human body is capable of doing so much more, and we don't necessarily utilize all of that. And I think, if you can, I know we sort of, I might sound like a broken tape recorder here, maybe Peter as well, planning, but I think, if you can plan adequately enough, at the end of the year, I mean, this is where I am, and with my syndicate group members, we've sort of reflected, and we're like, wow, we had those tough times, the ups and downs, the peaks and troughs, and now all of a sudden we're like, wow, we've completed so many of these modules. We're getting into these final stages now, and some of them it's reached a stage where when we're doing the last lecture of a specific model, the guys are a bit sad, and I'm like, wow, it's a different mindset from saying like, okay, it's a tick box and let's go ahead. And some of them are like, wow, we're actually going to miss this. So I think, if I depart, I think, that the human mind and the human body is capable of doing so much more. I think we only sort of tap into a very little bit of it. And, if we can allow for the right level of planning, controlling your stress level, it's a little bit of stress is good at times. But I think, it's, we can do so much more. And I think, it enhances yourself, enhances individuals around you. As well as it will have a positive impact in your life and career going forward. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody. It's been great, and I hope some of my insights have helped you. Thank you.
Well done, Nitesh. Thank you. That's so encouraging and supportive to everyone listening or watching today. And good luck, and really appreciate you coming on the show. All the best. Thanks, Nitesh.
No problem. Take care. Okay, bye.